married to Halila, daughter of Murrah. She was of the Banu Bakr. So he was from another tribal, his wife was from another tribal group. And you see, they dwelt in a himma, a preserve, wherein he claimed, Kulab claimed the sole right of pasturage. If you want this, it's on page 56, you can look at it. It's in your book. Where he claimed the sole right of pasturage. And this is how complicated these relationships can get, and that's why I think this story is really interesting. Because I think this really is the story of the beginning of the Qais-Kalb feud, or how they thought the Qais-Kalb feud begins. And it begins over nothing. It begins over a lark's nest, according to this story. Just a lark's nest. I can understand how that happens. Anyway, he shared this with the sons of Murrah, the parentage of his wife, and then her brother, he had a brother-in-law, Jassas. That was her brother, his brother-in-law, and her aunt called Basus, which is where this name gets its, where this war gets its name. Okay, that's our cast of characters. Have I lost you? Well, it's in the book, so you should be able to find it. Now, one day Kulab, which actually means little dog in Arabic, Kalb is dog, Kulab is little dog, seeing a lark's nest as he walked out, and the helpless bird in the nest on the ground in front of him, said to the bird, which was fluttering and shrieking and around distressfully over her eggs. Now I can picture myself as a human being. I don't know if it has anything to do with being a man or a woman. You should decide yourself if it has anything to do with gender. I happen to unfortunately be male gender, so I see it from my point of view. You women may see it from your perspective, but I can see myself saying this, and I'm sure I have. Have no fear, little bird, I will protect you. And of course, that's how I feel about the great blue heron's nest. And the other day, we found one of the herons that was in a fledgling state that had fallen out of the nest. And the game wardens and others who run those fire boats and everything down there reported it, and they said, "Oh, we can't do anything with a bird unless it's injured. And that bird, he just fell out of the nest." I said, "Are you kidding? He's sitting there, he can't move." No, we looked at him. He's not injured. So I finally got one of the policemen after a while to come, and they called up this wildlife shelter, and they finally took the bird. Later, we find the bird died, and it had a broken vertebrae, 3 broken ribs, and 1 broken wing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these guys in the fire, whatever they were, said, "Oh, the fishing game people, they couldn't touch it because it wasn't injured. It had just fallen out of its nest." I mean, this is the kind of thing that you run into all of the time. But look, I understand trying to protect creatures like this, and I can see why this could cause a war. It may be between the sensitive people and the insensitive people. So take heed. Anyway, pardon me. He says to the bird and her eggs, "Have no fear, little bird. I will protect you." What's that part of Marua? Protection of the weak. Protection of the weak. But sometime afterwards, and this other guy, Jassas, is one of his clients, he observed a track of a strange camel, and the eggs had been broken. And then the next day, he and Jassas were visiting the pasture ground, and Kulab noticed the she-camel of Saad. Who's Saad? A client of this Jassas. So it's not even Jassas we're worried about. It's this client fellow. So we're going to get into observing the bond of clientship. But it's not Kulab's client, it's Jassas's client. And Kulab, as a big chieftain, says, "Take heed, you watch out." This is in Victorian English, this translation. I have changed it a bit. "I have been thinking about this, and if I were sure, I would do it. I pondered something, and I would have done it. But I say this to you, May this she-camel never come into this pasturage again with the herd. Because he thinks this is the camel that trod on the bird's nest. They were getting dark and murky here, right? Can you picture people doing this? I can. Maybe you can. This is what I mean by honor, merua, things like that. Honor governs here, not necessarily religious principles. You know, if I were a Jesus follower, oh, peace, 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 turn the other cheek, love your enemy, you know, all these sort of things that you learn from the Jesus figure that you're supposed to imitate. But that's not a figure that's of this kind of behavior pattern. That's a figure in Rome within the framework of the Pax Romanum to be a good citizen and to keep your nose clean and stuff like that, not to get into these kind of squabbles. I don't know if you ever thought that. You know, you can say, oh, I love Jesus. I love Jesus. Jesus is everything to me. Yeah, but some people don't love Jesus. Some people love other things. Some people love honor, virtue, things like that. Well, what's that got to do with honor? Isn't it nice to love your enemies? Well, is it nice to love Hitler? No, I don't think so. No, I think you have to kill people like Hitler, frankly, before they kill a lot of other people. And I don't think it is nice to love your enemy in every instance. So, you know, you've heard it. These are wonderful things. Yeah, we all admire them. That doesn't mean that they work and that they're good for everybody. Certainly they're not prevalent in this situation here. You could say, oh, well, they should be. These people would be better off if they follow what, oh, well, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. We only live once.